Hey folks, James Millard here with Olympic Peninsula Skagit Tactics, and today I'm here to talk to you about our Micro Skagit MS Rods. We have 3 rods in the lineup. We have a 9 foot 9 inch 3-weight, which is great for your smaller waters and your fish up to about 17 inches. We have a 10 foot 4-weight, which I'm holding here right now, which is a rod that is best suited for your small and medium sized rivers, even some larger rivers, and is rigged with a 175 to 200 grain commando head, which is what we put on a 9 foot 4-weight or a 10 foot 4-weight. And then the third rod we have in our lineup is a 10 foot 4 inch 5-weight, which is suited for your bigger rivers and your larger fish. We've changed a bunch of stuff with these rods, and the original, the way this kind of came about was we were seeking to beef up the 8-weight in our series to make it a little bit easier to fish with, longer casts and bigger flies, bigger fish. And we found a graphite blend that we really liked. We liked the graphite blend so much that we used it in our MS Series rods as well as the SHS Series, which is the heavier rods. The graphite blend is lighter but has more authority, and will cast a little bit farther than our original lineup will. They're lighter in hand, and we also changed the rear of the grip of the rod. We made a short full well grip with brand new cork that's really nice. It doesn't kill the tree when they use the cork. They just take the bark off, and that results in a more high quality cork. We changed the reel seat to a down locking reel seat, which we found that our customers preferred. We changed the reel components to give them a more high-end feel, and we changed the shape of the rear grip as well to make it a little bit more ergonomic for two-handed fly casting. The one big difference about these rods compared to a trout spey rod from another company is that our rods are more true to weight than another trout spey rod on the market. So we consider our stuff Micro Skagit, which is really short, light heads and short, lighter rods as well. The main difference between these rods is ours are more true to weight. So for a 9 foot 9 inch 3-weight, we would use a 150 grain to 175 grain commando head, which is what we put on a regular 3-weight single-handed rod. On this 10 foot 4-weight MS rod, we put a 175 to 200 grain commando head, which is why I'm using a 175 today with a 8 foot D2 T6 micro sink tip. And then our 10 foot 5-weight, we would put a 225 to 250 grain commando head on it, which is, your what we would put on a 6-weight rod. So with these rods being more true to weight, they cast just as well, but they are more matched for fish size. A 14-inch fish on this 10 foot 4-weight is going to feel like a good fish on bend the rod down into the butt of the rod a bit. If you were using an 11 and a half foot 4-weight from another company, you would find that fish didn't feel very big on that rod. You just water skip that fish into you. So I think that the Micro Skagit rods are worth looking at when you're talking about smaller quarry fish. So what I have in my hands is an 11 foot 4-weight trout spey rod from another company. It's different from our Micro Skagit rods in that it's a lot heavier when you convert it into a two-handed rod or a one-handed rod. This rod takes a 275 grain commando head with a 10 foot 80 grain commando sink tip. That's the same setup I put on a 7 or 8-weight single-handed rod. So when you convert this trout spey rod into a single-handed rod to try to match your fishery, you've got a 7 or 8-weight single-handed rod, which is not a lot of fun when you're talking about catching your 8, 10, 12-inch trout or bass, which is your average fish that most people are catching on most rivers like this one here. That is a lot different than our Micro Skagit rods that are more true to weight than your trout spey rods that you see on the market. I'll explain that next. So by comparison, I have the new MS Micro Skagit OPST rod that's a 10-foot 4-weight. This rod takes a 175 grain commando head and an 8-foot D2 T6 micro sink tip. That's 100 grains lighter than the rod I showed you earlier from another company. That's the same line setup that I put on a 9-foot 4-weight or a 10-foot 4-weight sometimes. So these rods are more true to weight, which makes it easier for me to match it to a fishery. It's perfectly matched to this fishery that has 8 to 12-inch trout on average. You don't end up overpowering the fish when you're landing them. This rod will be a lot more enjoyable as you're catching those smaller fish, trout or bass. So that's the main difference between trout spey and Micro Skagit. Trout spey rods are 2 to 3 line weights heavier, 4 line weights heavier sometimes than what they read on their label. Whereas our rod, 10-foot 4-weight, this is a 10-foot 4-weight single-handed rod. If I were to put a single-handed line on here, I would put a 4-weight single-handed line on this rod. So maybe a 5-weight if I like things a little heavier, but you know, a river like this, when you're single-hand fishing with a single-handed rod, you're fishing a 9-foot 4-weight most of the time because that's the size fish you're catching. If you go to trout spey this river, you've got that 11-foot 4-weight from another company that's 2 to 3, 4 line weights heavier. It's not as much fun as the Micro Skagit 10-foot 4-weight, which is converted into a 9-foot 4-weight single-handed rod, which gives these fish a lot more feel and fun when you're fighting them. So that's the main difference between trout spey and Micro Skagit. So to review, the difference between your traditional trout spey rods that are on the market and these Micro Skagit rods that we offer are the Micro Skagit rods are more true to weight than the trout spey rods that are available currently. For example, the 11-foot 4-weight I showed you earlier takes a 275 grain commando head, which is what I put on a 7 or 8 weight rod. This rod, the 10-foot 4-weight Micro Skagit rod, takes a 175 grain commando head, which is what I put on a single-handed 4-weight. So this rod is more closely matched to a single-hand 4-weight than the trout spey rod that I showed you earlier, meaning that it's going to be a lot more enjoyable when you catch your 10 to 12-inch trout. So I think that if you're in the market for something different when you're looking at trout spey rods and something that's a little bit more matched to your average trout or bass fishery, the MS Series, Micro Skagit Series from OPST shows a clear advantage over the 11-foot 4-weight that you find on the shelves right nowadays. So if you're in the market for a trout spey style rod, I think you should give these Micro Skagit rods a good hard look. They definitely will match to your fishery and be a lot more enjoyable when you're fighting your average fish. They are just as at home on a big river as they are on a small river, and we have them in 3 sizes to match your small, medium, and large fish. So I think that these rods are definitely worth a look. Thanks for watching.